Welcome back to r/Neighbors from Hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors. And if you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled, "This is private property, sir." A few pieces of scenario you need to keep in mind. I'm a student and I rent a shared old house with other students. The house has no garden, but there is a long paved space around, all walled. None of us can leave it since there was a second lockdown, so we have to stay in this space for daily activities. Second thing to know is that I recently picked up daily exercise since I recovered from Big C. I'm not infected anymore, and I am lucky that there is a space good enough beside our house with a nice curb I can use to some things I couldn't otherwise. The third thing is that this part of the paved space, even though close to the house, is the opposite way from the street door, which means that most people only go there either to park their cars, there are always some on the opposite side, or because they live the garage next door who shares the space. The garage is not used for cars and I guess it is reconditioned as a tiny flat instead. All houses around me are owned by the same landlady who lives somewhere close. Now onto the incident. I was doing squats there and minding my business when this older neighbor, who I don't know because I moved in September, parks in front of the space. He starts moving towards me, so I greet him, which he does not reciprocate. Instead, he just states with the most proponent expression, "You know, this is private property." I still don't know if he's another tenant or the husband of the landlady, so I suppose he might be right that I had no legalistic right to stand in this space nobody used to exercise. So I just answered that I was sorry and didn't know before picking my phone and leaving. By this point he already left towards the garage. This was unusual because this is a friendly little town and I didn't think the person that used that space could care or even less prevent young people from exercising just because he didn't like to see it while getting out of the car. I am very sure nobody inside the garage could know I was there and much less be bothered. I was raised into helping out people, especially neighbors who you never know when you might need to help you, and to me this is frankly a dick move in normal times and even worse during a lockdown. Maybe it also struck me as especially sucky-ish because I am an anarchist and I absolutely cannot fathom why someone would do something like this to go out of his way just to be a dick and deprive people from using an empty space just because it is yours. Either because he also rents it or he is married to the lady who owns 10th of the houses she just uses to get 80% of people's paycheck just for having inherited a paper. But rant finished, this is not the time to make revolutions. He had his chance to be a nice neighbor and well, he blew it. Next week I see him again and he is changing a tire that he obviously blew by clashing with the curb. I start exercising in the only available spot besides my door. Worse spot, but never mind. I see him struggle for a good 25 minutes with no avail before asking me if I could lend a hand. Now I know how to do it and could absolutely help him, even if I am probably not physically stronger. He is on his 40s. I would absolutely help any other neighbor or passerby, but for this guy I prefer to stand before his section of the pavement and tell him that I am sorry I cannot get there as that is private property. The guy then just packed up all his stuff and went inside to call a crane. And I finished my exercise. And guys, I think the OP is definitely right about something here. It never hurts if you are nice to your neighbors because maybe at some point in the future you might need their help. I gotta say personally, I'm not usually the type of person that is really excited about getting to know the neighbors and becoming friends with them, but there is some truth to what OP is saying here. And the next one is titled, "Woman blocks me into handicap parking space because I don't need it." Backstory: I, 33 female, have a handicap placard due to a serious heart condition and problems with my joints. I have a permanent brace on one of my ankles that I cannot walk without. I also currently have the patella of one of my knees displaced, just waiting for a surgery date to fix it. However, to the naked eye, I don't really look disabled. Anyway, I had to go to Walmart to pick up a prescription for my mom. I parked in a handicap spot because I knew I would barely be able to walk after standing in line to pick it up and walking through the store. I got back to my car, got set up and shifted into reverse. As I was starting to back up, an older woman in one of the motorized scooters parked it directly behind me. Then got up and started loading her car. The basket on the scooter and the cart her son, I'm assuming late teenager, had were both really full. I gave them a minute thinking they would unload the scooter and move it. When they didn't do that, I asked them if they could please move the scooter for a minute so I could pull out. The woman told me that no, she would not move it. She had seen me walk out of the store and I obviously wasn't disabled and did not need the spot. I should have left the spot for people like her who really need it. She then proceeded to rant at me because I was obviously using someone else's placard just to be lazy. This woman kept me blocked in for almost 10 minutes. I was getting ready to go in and ask for an associate to help me when she finally moved. I was trying to not have to walk back on because that would have really increased the amount of pain I was in. It did not seem like an important enough thing to call the police about. I didn't want to ask her again after her rant because there have been several times in our area lately where people pulled guns on others they got annoyed with. It did not seem worth the risk, and when they finally finished unloading, an associate came out, took the scooter while the teenager took the cart back. I shifted into reverse again and was backing up, and he just walked directly behind my car, so close I was surprised I didn't hit him. He then just walked up to the passenger door and opened it, almost hitting my car. It's not really an exciting story, but I just cannot get over the entitlement this woman has. I am 100% sure she thinks she did something important or was trying to teach me a lesson. And you know guys, what really fascinates me about these people who claim that others might be fake disabled or something like that, it really seems like these people have no fear whatsoever, or they just don't care at all about being wrong. For me, if I would claim that someone is not disabled and then I would be proven wrong, I would be so damn embarrassed I cannot even imagine. But then again, maybe these people don't feel shame. You are actually going to use that clothesline? So my wife and I just bought a house with a huge backyard but no fencing. I was not really worried because my kids know their boundaries and we plan to put in a fence as soon as possible. The neighbors, however, have other plans. So when we were looking at the house, the realtor mentioned that the neighbor's broken down car was technically on our property, and so was the end of the gravel drive they had laid some time ago to more easily access their shed from the backyard. So I know putting in a fence later will be a bit of a hassle for them, but I didn't expect trouble to start so soon. There are poles ready for a clothesline in the backyard, and I was pretty excited about that when we first saw the house, so with the warmer weather I thought I would take advantage. I was out there hanging the line when the neighbor guy, the EB in this scenario, came out to chat. EB, hanging some rope? Me, yep. Fell behind on laundry while we were moving, so I figured I would put the clothesline to good use while I have the chance. EB stares at me for a long minute and I refuse to make eye contact while tying the lines. EB, you're actually going to hang clothes out there? Me, well yeah, I love using clotheslines. EB, I don't think that's gonna work. Me finally looks at him, why not? I don't want to look out my window and see your dirty unmentionables. That reaction was a little uncalled for. Me, they will be clean when they get hung up, and underclothing doesn't hang on my clothesline. It gets hung up inside. EB, still, I don't want to see it. And how does putting clean clothes outside keep them clean? At this point, I took a glance up the hill to the guy's house and noticed that all his windows were either blocked from this vantage point by either his shed or overgrowth. He really wouldn't be seeing much of anything. Me, so I'm going to hang my clothes to dry and I would like you to stay on your side of the property line. Things started to get really heated at that point. I was just trying to finish tying the lines and he was in a full-blown rant about young people buying houses they don't deserve and making for the worst neighbors he's ever had. I'm still baffled by how upset he was about my laundry. And guys, if you have watched until here and enjoy the stories about crazy and entitled neighbors, then please don't forget to post some star emojis in the comments. And if you want to make me extra happy, you could even like the video. Thank you so much in advance, it really helps me out a lot. And now, ripe stars, onto the title story. It is titled Landlord Tries to Evict Us in the Middle of Winter, ends up costing her more money. About 5 months after leaving my wife and my best friend had a falling out with his girlfriend, we ended up moving in together in a 1-bedroom basement apartment near downtown. Here is the cast for the story: my best friend Joe, the landlord Carol because she reminds me of my evil stepmother, the fire marshal Bill, health inspector Jenny, our lawyer Jim, and the building inspector Charles. We ended up moving in during the spring of 2007. It was a small apartment and the utilities were included in the rent. We were paying $600 a month. I took the bedroom while Joe slept in the small living room kitchenette on the couch. There were some problems with a couple of items, but it wasn't anything I couldn't fix. Carol did not mind me putting down new cement for the basement steps or fixing the awning outside of our door so it wouldn't leak. Things were looking good until the fall and winter hit. Every time it rained, the water would come down and flood the basement. I had to invest in a shop vac to suck up the water. When it got cold, the heating ducts were virtually useless, so we had to run the stove to keep warm. This worked out okay until February the next year, when Carol got her electric bill. I worked nights and was sleeping when she came down and told Joe that we had to leave because her electric bill was so high. He tried to explain to her that the heat down here did not work and we were freezing. She didn't care. Joe wakes me up and tells me this. I was not having it. Joe and I went down to City Hall and went to the Board of Health office. That is where we met Jenny. We explained our situation to her and she set up a time to investigate it with Bill and Charles. About 3 days later, Jenny, Bill and Charles show up at Carol's door and demand to investigate the basement. Carol is pissed as they all come into our apartment. They start listing all the violations, such as inadequate heat, unpadded carpet flooring, no second egress exit, no access to fuse panels or circuit breakers. Carol started arguing with Joe about this. She didn't want to talk to me because I was white and Joe was black as she was. But Joe is Blackfoot, she is Haitian. Even still, Joe did not like her. Carol:
Why did you call them?
I didn't. Carol:
Who did?
I did. Carol:
You had no right to do this. We don't have a lease.
Me: Oh no? What do you call this then? I pull out the agreement we all signed and showed her that electric was included in the rent. Jenny and Charles looked at it as well and said this does constitute a tenancy at will agreement. She was ordered by the city to repair and bring the basement up to code as long as we were living there. About 2 weeks later, HVAC contractors showed up to start working on putting a separate heating system in for the basement. Also, a county sheriff showed up about another 4 weeks after with letters of eviction for both Joe and I. In Massachusetts, eviction cases go through civil court, but the tenant's lawyer can have the case moved to housing court. Housing court leans more towards the tenant than the landlord. We speak to our lawyer Jim, who believes we can get our security deposit back, but not much else. Joe is looking to move in with his new girlfriend. And I am planning on taking her old place, which is only around the block from where we live now. In the meantime, while we are still there at her house, she still has to get it up to code and we don't have to pay her. We show up to housing court when Jim tells us where our hearing is. Carol does show up with her lawyer. We wait quietly on the other side of the hall while Jim goes to speak to Carol and her attorney. Jim gives her a proposal for her to pay our security deposit back and Jim's fee. She refuses the offer and Jim tells her that we will go to trial then. He comes back and tells Joe and I this and says he will call us when we have to appear. We agree and we all leave. As we are leaving, I see Carol having an argument with the meter maid who is writing her a ticket for not putting money in the meter. Joe and I are laughing so hard as we drive by her. After Joe and I moved out, she settled for the deposit and lawyer's fees. I ended up getting $600 back, but after we left, the inspectors all came back and told her she couldn't rent out the basement anymore. With everything totaled up, she ended up spending over $7,000 in upgrades, another $1,100 in both mine and her attorney fees, plus my $600. She ended up putting the house on the market. No one would buy it. I think to this day it is still up for sale. Any takers? Yeah. And Ripe Stars, I would love to know, did you ever have to deal with a crazy, awful landlord? And if so, how did you deal with that person? Let us know in the comments. And the next one is titled, Guy Tries to Mug Me, May Have Blinded Him, and it was posted on r/ripestories by user Undefined Spoon. And just a little warning guys, this story seems a little bit violent, so if you are put off by that usually, then maybe you should skip this story. I'm sure by now most people have seen stories and videos where someone is pumping their gas and a thief will come to the other side of the car, carefully open the door and steal what is inside while the owner is busy pumping gas. I have always locked my doors when getting gas. I have done this for 15 plus years. Maybe I am just paranoid, but it wasn't until recently, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, that I heard that people were getting robbed like this, and not gonna lie, I sort of felt like the kid in school who did the cool thing way before everyone else thought it was cool. Locking my doors at the pump actually came in handy once that I know of anyway, was somewhere in downtown Chicago pumping gas. Dude and his girl pulls up behind me in a Suburban with tinted windows. I drive an Avalanche which basically has the same frame and fuel tank setup, and saw he pulled up to the pump not even halfway, which I thought was very odd as the gas door is on the very rear side, almost to the tail light. I knew he wasn't just parking at a pump to go in the store, as no one else was at the gas station and I was at the far end pump, and he parks right behind me, kind of a long walk, but with enough distance from me to make a quick getaway I assume. I am keeping an eye on him at this point. He goes around as if to go in the store, pretty sure he tried the handle as I felt the truck move. He started coming back around to the back, faced me, hand in his jacket, pretend gun, maybe real gun, no idea. I had the pump handle up like I was going to put it back, turned to face him keeping the pump handle up. I said, "Hey bud, how's it going?" He said,
"Give me what you got."
And I pulled the handle, spraying him in the face with the gas pump. He was not expecting it as he dropped to the ground. As a mechanic, I have accidentally sprayed gas in my eyes before, and let me tell you, a drop burns like hell. I cannot imagine a face full of gas in your eyes, nose, ears and mouth. I didn't let up, probably sprayed 2 or 3 gallons all over him, focusing on his face mostly, as he was rolling around on the ground screaming in agony, trying to crawl away and wipe the fuel from his eyes. May or may not have kicked him hard once or 5 times, I will plead the 5th on that one. Then dropped the pump and pretended like I was looking for a lighter, didn't have one, don't smoke, told him he was going to burn in hell tonight. He ran off falling down and screaming towards the back of the store and then yelled, "You're leaving a nice trail of gas, let's see if you can outrun the fire." Again, no lighter, just being cruel at this point. His girl did nothing but scream from the Suburban the whole time. I jumped in my truck, hit reverse, floored it, crushing their front end and radiator with the ridiculously huge adjustable raised hitch ball I always keep on my truck. Didn't want the girl or anyone else who may have been inside to follow/chase me, and hauled ass out of there. This whole thing probably happened in the span of 1 minute or so, very fast, called the cops, gas station had no working cameras, dude and Suburban were gone by the time they got there, 15 to 20 minutes later. The cops asked if I wanted to file a report, I said there was no point and left. Absolutely no damage to my truck other than some scuffs on the hitch and bumper. This was quite a while ago, maybe 2008, 2010ish. I sincerely hope the gas in his eyes blinded him. Never found out what happened to the guy, but don't really care, as I was on my way to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina for 2 weeks. Had a great time. I have more stories from my days traveling and trucking if anyone cares to hear them. I have driven all across the country, love driving and RVing and seeing the sights. I have never actually been on a plane before, as I find the whole concept boring. I have no problems driving 12 to 14 hours in a day to go somewhere interesting. And yes, Mr. Undefined Spoon, I would love to hear some more stories from you. Thank you very much for sharing this one with our community. And guys, unfortunately, we have already reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and if you haven't already, please also go to patreon.com/ripeyoutube, where I upload exclusive Reddit videos starting at just $3 a month. This is a great way to support me in case you are interested, and the chance for me to become independent from YouTube revenue. Thank you so much for watching, please don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.